Hello everyone, my name is Sotolo, creator and curator of the Virtual Furry Museum. I have collected stories from thousands of furries, read and conducted real anthropological research, and given hundreds of tours to thousands that have gone on to help potentially tens of thousands of furries in this fandom. I was even the best friend of Mark Silas Sable Merlino, the man who inspired it all, and brought people together over a common interest in anthro-animals. You may have heard the news lately of the VRCommunity Awards decision to remove the Virtual Furry Museum from the category of Best Virtual Experience in the second round of voting, after votes from so many of my fans and sponsored have already been cast. But many of you may not understand the nuance of this issue, or even the history of censorship or the order of events. So you may not understand the anger and frustration that many furries have over this. So let's get into that. On January 15, 2026, Puck, the chairman of the VRCommunity Awards, congratulated me for passing the first phase of voting and becoming a finalist in the category of Best Virtual Experience. Many of my fans wanted the museum in the running, so I put it in. And many voted for it. This put the Virtual Furry Museum in the top 3 tier against VR Dancing, a sponsor for the event, and VR Dance Academy. Both groups feature dancing, live sessions, and performers, bringing a lot of people together. Voting for this opened 5 days later. On January 21st, 2026, at 2:18 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, on the 6th day, Puck sent me a message saying the Virtual Furry Museum was removed from the second round of voting, saying he has obligations to third parties and legal agreements made with sponsors, citing 4 pieces of the subculture exhibit being in violation of their TOS. I know these reasons were a combination of fear, lies, and active discrimination against our community. Since most of my fans didn't know their votes were being shredded while I actively promoted the awards to them, and Puck did not approach me kindly to discuss this matter before making this decision, on 2:39 p.m., 21 minutes later, I posted that to Blue Sky to let my fans know, and many people who've already voted for the Virtual Furry Museum know, that their votes were shredded. I responded to Puck 5 minutes later saying this content is no worse than what's featured in children's shows. You just blacklisted the majority of the furry fandom, and what's saving their lives, and what's helping communities from what many consider to be the best virtual experience in VR chat. Twitch, YouTube, and VR chat have taken no issue to the content here. You did. I blocked him until I could gather more information on what he'd already said and prevent him from saying anything stupider. I don't think he understands just how stupid some of his comments sound, so I blocked him until I could get some more information and prevent him from saying anything further. It turned out what I said was true. VRChat's trust and safety team said that art is subjective, but explicit mention of kink is not. This had already been worked out and figured out before the museum's public release. So VRChat is not the problem. And I want people to understand this. VRChat has never been the problem with the Virtual Furry Museum. They are the host platform for this museum. They are the people who are giving us their support. They are the people who are giving us a platform to speak. And they're giving so many furries a home. So do not eliminate your VR Chat Plus subscriptions over this. I don't want people thinking that VR Chat is the problem. The VRCommunity Awards is a separate entity, and they even state so on their website. So, over time, the exhibit stopped being about just art and started being about communities, education, the escapism, and how people are receiving help through those subcultures. I streamed the entire subculture exhibit with Scintilla on April 5th, 2025, to an audience of 1,900 people. The tour lasted over an hour in that room alone, showcasing all the art, the stories, and education about our fandom subcultures and how they're helping people. Scintilla personally thanked me after the tour, saying it helped so many people in his community, and it brought so many people together, and he received a massive outpouring of love and support. An even older stream with Leon Foxy for all the art in the museum, at the time of its release, 1 week after it was recorded, was also posted to YouTube, where it was never removed. So Twitch and YouTube had no problem showing this content. I asked Scintilla if he was ever suspended for that stream, and he was not. So we know for a fact that Twitch does not have issue with the art, and the concerns that Puck had were errant. So I unblocked Puck, and in a later post on 4:33 p.m., I told him the story of William Randolph Hearst, meddling the Academy of Motion Pictures to deny Citizen Kane an award as he saw a critique of his own extravagant lifestyle in the picture. I told him how his decision to censor the entire museum effectively censored every single furry's experience involved in every single furry's experience from the awards. And it was all over the lamest possible excuse. So yeah, it was bullshit. Kink was absolutely involved in their sponsors, featured avatar categories, and events. But they drew the line at furry art, at this museum. I asked for the real reason, and shared with him what I had found out, including the fact that streamers were not banned from showing the subculture exhibit or presentation on any platform, despite his claims the mirror piece specifically violates Twitch's terms of service, and the fact that a direct sponsor of the event was in competition with me. So, 4:45 p.m. I added images of Hypnosis from Disney's The Jungle Book, Vor in the Magic School Bus, Tommy from Nickelodeon's Rugrats, and a scene from Capertown Cops with Tickling. All children's shows rated TV-Y, fit for public broadcast, showing very similar physical content to what's shown in the museum. I also mentioned Rugrats had scenes of breastfeeding featured as well, which I do not wish to show here. So the list of acceptable content for children's programming far exceeds the virtual furry museum, and that list goes on and on and on. I told him and showed him the hypocrisy of his statements. Puck responded 4:49 p.m. that the decision wasn't made lightly, and the decision wasn't his own, along with the fact that he never would have even nominated the Virtual Furry Museum in the first place if he saw the furry art in the subculture exhibit. He listed a subreddit from Asmongold showing Tiger was suspended from Twitch for wearing diapers. He said PieShock was advertised as a real-time haptic device and was permissible. So there's a lot of things wrong with his logic here. PieShock is used extensively in the kink communities. People do not see PieShock as a haptic device, the way a haptic vest would be. The advertisement of the device is extensively kink-oriented, demonstrating power dynamics and roleplay. This isn't just me saying it, this is how it's advertised. The Virtual Furry Museum is advertised as a place of education, and that's exactly what we do. So according to the VRCommunity Awards, a device advertised to the kink community isn't kink at all, but an educational museum that is tamer than children's cartoons is too kink-oriented for the awards. Even though the research shows people in these communities care more about the escapism and the communities themselves more than anything to do with sex specifically. The sex is helpful, especially for people with ADHD, but that's a whole topic too big to cover in this video. What I teach is what I learned and what I hear from so many people. And it's not the assumptions. So the second thing wrong was his assumption for Tiger's suspension, that it was because they wore diapers. Now, there are hundreds of ABDL streamers on Twitch, and Tiger herself had been accepted to Twitch's front page in a diaper with thousands of views. Tiger even stated publicly, well, on her streams, that in order to get approved for the front page, Twitch has to review their content. And they worked with Twitch in order to make sure that, everything on the front page is going to be cleared. And wearing a diaper was not an issue. The reason that Tiger was suspended was because many, many, many trolls had attacked the community during the stream, and the stream was not cut off at all, but the suspension came the following day after, on a later stream, where the stream was cut off from an automatic robot. They were suspended for not even 24 hours. Tiger appealed the decision, and the decision appeal was accepted. Twitch found no wrongdoing, and Tiger was back on the air. I mean, at this point, I actually joined Tiger's stream. Oh yeah, I can also say I did see the stream myself that Tiger had done on the front page of Twitch. And I didn't find any wrongdoing on that stream. I didn't find anything that broke terms of service. I didn't see anything that would be offensive to children or anything. It was merely a troll army against them, and an automatic robot that said Tiger deserved to be suspended. So it wasn't an actual real suspension. It didn't hold any water. They weren't even suspended for 24 hours. The appeal went through. And what's funny is Twitch has hundreds of ABDL streamers who do wear diapers or have avatars and characters in diapers on streams, and the diapers are not an issue. So even if Puck said that this was the real reason, and he's insisting this was the real reason, there is no actual research done to ensure that this was the real reason, and or it would be harmful in any way. It absolutely was not. Tiger had been streaming for 8 years, and for many, many of those years, Tiger had worn a diaper along with hundreds of Twitch streamers, and including the front page of Twitch, which was not suspended at all. While it was happening, and Twitch was reviewing and seeing it. So I joined Tiger actually on the stream at that point to share what had happened and let them know that they were being called out. If that justification against Tiger was used, there are several ABDL members of the awards right now who could also be removed for similar reasons, and I don't think that's I don't think that is a very ludicrous assumption. Now, I didn't care too much to look into Asmongold because the claim was already false. There's no reason to look into the source of the claim, but I joined Tiger's stream to discuss it, and she informed me that Asmongold was responsible for extremely racist comments and was permanently banned from Twitch. He made anti-Palestinian rants. He specified a willingness to run over protesters, and all sorts of political statements that would definitely promote violence, and I would not promote those statements or violence against anyone. So, in Tiger's eyes, just receiving information from a source like that was already extremely biased and not worthy of consideration. But to Puck, that kind of harassment was considered worthy information. As soon as I posted what Puck had done, the love started pouring in. A lot of people had shared how much the museum meant to them, and they absolutely detested Puck's actions and his reasoning to remove the virtual furry museum. Sponsors for the event weren't happy about that. A lot of voters weren't happy that their votes were discarded. The people from even outside the fandom weren't happy with the decision for censorship either. And Puck continued doubling down, saying he had also removed others, which makes me question what else did he remove. And then he's trying to say that others completely understood and accepted it, but given the amount of lying that had been done so far and lack of research, I highly doubt that. So I told Puck that he is digging himself a bigger grave and writing us all off. He is harming his sponsors. And I started showing him people's real feelings. My last message to him was saying that he does have the power to change this, but he didn't respond to me after that. On Discord, he stopped commenting about the museum, and he would stop anyone from commenting about it. As far as he was concerned, the decision was done and it's over, and we should stop talking about it. Different people were sympathetic to him, but I couldn't see this blatant act of censorship and all the faulty reasoning as helpful to anyone. Admittedly, I may have crossed a line calling Puck himself a mistake, but after the sentiments regarding admitting the museum to the awards was a mistake, and people sympathizing over stigmas against VR communities and positioning the museum in such a bad light, in such an errant light, there needed to be a voice that spoke the truth. I do not think Puck is worthy or worthwhile of being an honest, unbiased portrayal of VR communities if he cannot accept that the virtual furry museum's art is acceptable to a general audience, or to Twitch, or to YouTube, or a 13-plus audience, which is what VR chat actually has. We don't have, tiny children running in here. We have, effectively, at the youngest, teenagers. But good luck getting teenagers to, enjoy history. When I ask for age groups in our tours, it seems like the youngest people go is in their 20s and 30s. It seems to be a lot older furries enjoy coming here. So if Puck wishes to represent communities properly and fairly, he needs to do so. He said he wanted to, but that's how you do it. There are communities who get attacked by trolls. There's minorities who get hurt. And this isn't, he's not going to be a voice that protects those communities. He's going to be the very first voice to remove them. So the hatred was getting riled up, and it had continued to escalate. He wasn't reversing his decision. He wasn't realizing that what he was saying was extremely harmful to a lot of people, and completely rejected people's feelings after voting, and everything that he was saying was not helping this problem. So it raised... People told me that apparently what he had done by presenting himself as an awards organization and then meddling with the votes goes against several European laws in the UK and Germany. I do not know. I am not a lawyer. I don't know if that is accurate. Even if it is, I don't think it's a good idea to just eliminate an awards ceremony. I just think it needs to be handled better. It needs to be managed better with people who actually do care about minorities and will stand up for minorities. We can't have, like lawsuits going back and forth because of someone's, discrimination. But I was told basically to just send all complaints to the website under their contact us page, and all it is just an email. So I took that email, I sent it to my community, to my groups. I told everyone, share your stories and share how you feel. And here's the email to give your information. And that is basically what's leading us to today. This act of censorship was the biggest act of censorship, the biggest and most blatant against the Virtual Furry Museum in the entire history of this museum's existence. It might even be one of the biggest and most blatant acts of censorship against furry experiences and furry art in modern contemporary history. The entire museum was banned over a few pieces of art. So he didn't just ban the subculture exhibit and the few pieces of art in the subcultures. He banned the Furs of Color display and the presentations I give discussing furs of color. He banned the history of the furry fandom exhibit, where I explain these communities to people and the history of how these communities were made. He banned, which, by the way, was also the story of how the anime fandom was made. He banned the furry family ofrenda, which for many Mexican furries was one of their only representations in America that is a permanent fixture. He banned Panda Paco's display. He banned art from Hearthfox. He banned so many artists from all around the world, so many ethnic minorities, so many cultural minorities, so many subcultures, even beyond what's depicted in the exhibit. And then also he banned Silas's memorial, which is where so many people have given their stories to remember one of our fandom's greatest founders, Silas, Sable, Mark Merlino. So in response to the museum being banned, I held a tour of the subculture exhibit, proudly stating that it was banned from the VRCommunity Awards and several VR creator communities. A friend took photos of this special presentation, which included the history of the creation of the display, different attitudes about it, and censorship requests to take it down. I shared information that ended up helping so many people, including someone whose mother experienced abuse as a child and needed help confronting their hatred about certain communities in the furry fandom. I was able to help that person and come to terms with a great loss, and a great source of hatred from them just vanished. So I'd like to take this time to talk briefly about censorship in history. Art and education have constantly been censored throughout history for a variety of reasons. Conflicts with ideologies or morals, conflicts with religion, conflicts with intolerance, people who promote and justify discrimination. This history goes back thousands of years. I could talk for hours about the historical examples, but let's focus on furry discrimination specifically. Back in the 1970s, Mark Silas Sable Merlino gathered many cartoonists to create the Cartoon Fantasy Organization. Initially intended to share furry media, unfortunately most of that media was oriented towards children. And professional cartoonists, who were adults, were actually quite tired of their work, and it was not intended for them. So the group started airing anime instead, which had not been westernized, and that inspired a lot of cartoonists even further. Silas became the videotape librarian, which many professional cartoonists brought to the group and checked out anime videotapes from in order to help improve and inspire their work. What many in the group didn't know, however, was that Silas was bisexual, and he actually shared a partnership with some members of his group. And over time, Silas would continue to gather furries and furry room parties, and held them at science fiction conventions and hotel rooms. And the CFO would go on hosting anime events at these conventions as well. Some events attracted over 200 people to screenings of anime films, and unfortunately, that made science fiction fans felt like they were losing their convention to people who loved anime more than literature. So trolls started attacking both the anime and furry fandoms. They made some horrible posters about us, and also spread rumors that the convention wasn't going to accept anime or or furries any further anymore, in the hopes that it would create enough confusion people would eventually stop going. Angela Jones responded to those rumors in a letter saying both were welcome the following year. The anime crowd made their convention, though, seeing fit that it was getting too big, it was getting too popular, and they needed a space of their own. And Silas did the same thing for furries, together with his housemates of the Prancing Skill Terror. When hosting conference, well, there was no one higher than him and his partner Rod, the co-directors of the convention, as far as what was accepted versus what wasn't. So when people had adult topics or LGBTQ topics, they didn't shy away from that. They didn't ban it. There was no one above them to say no. And they saw a benefit for the community to come together. Unfortunately, not everyone was accepting of adult artwork or LGBTQ people, and so this created a schism. Not a lot of people accepted furry as an identity or personality, and while Conference was continuing to host many groups, there were other groups that started coming up that detested this togetherness. The Burned Furs movement was created with a goal towards mainstream acceptance of furries. And they sought to do that and accomplish that by elimination and censorship of the adult communities and minorities that tend to be less universally accepted. Today, mention of the Burned Furs movement shows the flaws in their reasoning. After many decades, it did not result in people accepting furries any further, and it only served to harm and harass the communities within the fandom that are helping people. So, at least as far as the entire fandom is concerned, the Burned Furs movement wasn't it. But I would be very biased and ultimately a very errant storyteller if I didn't also show the positives of such thinking. After Albany Anthrocon had a change in leadership, the convention started reforming and eliminating adult events to make an event that was exceptionally family-friendly. People who are definitely kink-oriented still love Anthrocon's flavor, which became very well supported by the city of Pittsburgh, who proudly sponsors and supports the event as it draws one of the biggest crowds to the city, and it remains an incredible source of revenue. There are people who remain critics of the Virtual Furry Museum as its mere depiction of minorities and minority communities within the fandom calls attention to groups that they feel, through anonymity, avoid trolls and targeted harassment. But knowledge dies in the dark, and without the truth to these communities being shared, information asymmetry happens. More and more people end up hating minority communities and subcultures that they don't really know or understand. When those minorities feel afraid to speak out, the voices that are ultimately shared and heard are overwhelmingly negative and rooted in prejudice. When I first joined the furry fandom formally years ago, I had a lot of that prejudice myself, for communities and people I really didn't understand. But after hearing stories from thousands of furries, now I understand just how much of these communities are helping people cope through trauma, through loss, and through lack of acceptance in other spaces. Our fandom has saved lives. Silas heard thousands of these stories. It was often the first response he'd receive when telling people that he made the fandom. It has become the Virtual Furry Museum's goal, my goal, to try and understand why. I know exactly the pain people have felt from censorship. I cannot go backwards on that goal. I know exactly the pain that comes from censorship. I know the ignorance that goes into making these decisions. And I also know that the decisions to eliminate furries or to sanitize the fandom in order to make it a more accepted mainstream culture harms people. But the Virtual Furry Museum does not actively discriminate against voices on the basis of mainstream acceptance. The entire purpose of this project and this great world is to educate. So, all that being said, here's my advice to Puck. Listen to the voices. Our voices as a community. From people whose lives have been saved by this fandom. And know wholeheartedly that I do not give a fuck about your award or a ceremony that sees fit to discriminate against furry art and subcultures. I don't need it. Silas heard how this fandom saved thousands of lives, and on my tours, I heard it just the same. No criticism of my museum, no act of censorship against this place will stop me from sharing the stories and saving the lives of more and more people. It seems to be your opinion too. I'm sorry, though, that you feel the Virtual Furry Museum and this fandom are not worth defending against its detractors. But the greatest experience anyone can receive is validation, comprehension, and understanding in a world that consistently puts people down and refuses to provide it out of fear. I will help people, regardless of your awards or what anyone thinks of my actions. It was all done to ensure people receive a real education, and it was done to fight the intolerance that grows every day. Intolerance that people remain ignorant to, and people who are being censored. I hope in the future you will consider that when making judgment calls rooted in fear and animosity without education. To the people who blocked myself, this world, or attempted to censor furry art in any way, I hear your criticism. But please understand, I will not stop sharing the stories, or the art, or the people because of your intolerance. Everything I do has helped people in some way. The more groups block the museum, the more exclusive it becomes to people that are actually willing to learn. Every single time the world is mentioned, even in a negative way, as many of you had done, it brings more and more good people to me that see the world for what it is and agree we need to present minorities and educate. To the furries still sponsoring and supporting this event, and those who are up for nomination, I hope you now understand the reasons why I cannot. The hatred against our fandom has gone on too long. People need to know why being furry, yes, the horrible, disgusting furry that the mainstream doesn't care for or understand, is saving lives. If I am censored for sharing the truth, so be it. But I'll never stop sharing the truth merely because one person, or one group, or an entire universe disagreed. People deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know that they are okay for who they are. They deserve to know that what they love and who they love is fine. And they deserve to know that what's helping them is also what's helping so many other people in this community, and they shouldn't feel ashamed of it. I cannot remain silent about the biggest act of censorship against the Virtual Furry Museum, the world and the exhibit and the art that Silas himself loved and toured together with me and helped me create. in order to make you feel better for ignoring the museum and all the people it's helping, and carrying on past this blatant disregard of history, of culture, and of people. I hope you continue moving the needle, however slowly you choose to move that needle. But know that there was never a time in history where people silently willed to end any kind of discrimination against any kind of people that they do not understand. History required major events of civil disturbance, sometimes even wars, to accomplish that. Some people fight discrimination with knives and confrontation. Some people fight discrimination with lies and manipulation. I fight discrimination with love and education. The reason this fandom was made was for furries. The reason this fandom was made for furries is because we couldn't be furry anywhere else. Our history, our culture, our communities, our art, and our people are being censored. But the truth of who we are and what we do and how this fandom is saving lives is what you will experience at the virtual Furry Museum. And I don't need a shiny piece of paper to tell me people love it. I cannot honor censorship. And you shouldn't either.